this video, my aim is to share a few hacks to help you start having conversations with people where you can build a connection with them without feeling afraid. If you are an introvert person or if you're naturally shy, just even saying hello to new people might really be scary. And not that long ago, I used to be in the same position where I could not say hello or introduce myself to strangers because it was the most nerve-wracking experience I could have. But then I realized we need to have the skill of having conversations, because this skill will lead you to build meaningful connections and meaningful relationships both personally and professionally. Let me tell you why I think I might be the right person to talk on this topic. See, for the last 5 years, I have worked on my communication skills. I worked as a door-to-door salesperson for 2 years almost, where I spoke to 8,000 people face to face. I learned the art of building a genuine connection with a stranger. And I want to share those lessons with you. The number one lesson that I learned right off the bat was, if you want to leave a good first impression, if you want to build a connection with somebody, don't be interesting, but be interested. I'll say it again. Don't be interesting, but be interested. Why? Look, we are all loving of ourselves. We love sharing our own stories. So when you meet somebody new and you feel interested in them, in knowing more about their journey, in knowing more about their stories, they feel genuinely connected to you because you're showing interest in knowing more about them. But here's the catch. If you are an introvert, if you're a shy person, this is a great tool for you to leave yourself out of the spotlight and put it all on the other person. You become the listener and let the other person speak more. This helps you feel less pressured to come up with things you want to say, and it still builds a really good conversation. So be interested in their stories, in their life, in their career, especially if you are afraid of having conversation. Speak less, listen more. And that person would, even if they spoke for 80% of the time, they will think you were a great conversationalist because you asked them questions about them. Again, we are all self-loving. We love sharing our own stories. So use this to your advantage. How you can do this is very easy. The basic fundamentals are ask open-ended questions, which are what, why, how, when. Do not ask a simple yes or no questions because it stops the communication. Think of communication, think of conversation like a tennis match, right? So you're playing tennis, you have the ball, you pass it back, and the other person says something, they pass it back. Don't make it a game of golf where you say something and it just lands in the hole. Asking a yes or no question is like playing golf. But when you ask open-ended why, what, when, how, WH questions, this is more playing tennis. Another way you can ask open-ended question is a framework called TED, T-E-D, which stands for tell, explain, describe. So you can ask, tell me more about this. Can you please explain what you mean by that? Describe me how it was like. So tell me, explain it to me, describe it please. These are other ways of asking those open-ended questions. All right, let's move to the second section, which is the icebreaker questions. Icebreakers, as the name suggests, is for you to break the ice between you and the person you're meeting for the first time. And I always think it's best to talk about the elephant in the room. You know that you're talking to that person for the first time. They know they're talking to you for the first time. There is sometimes that awkwardness. You can get rid of that awkwardness by just confronting it up front. So the question that I usually ask, my favorite, if I'm especially at a networking event, is what's a fact not on your LinkedIn? It doesn't have to be fun. If you ask what's a fun fact, people feel pressure to think of something witty and funny. Remove that pressure by just saying, what's a fact not on your LinkedIn? For me, it is, I have 20 titanium screws in my body. So when I say I'm screwed, I literally mean it. This is how I do it. Imagine I met you at a networking event. Hi mate, how you doing? Look, I know this is a networking event and I love to kick off a conversation with you by asking you this icebreaker question. What's a fact that is not on your LinkedIn? This is great for you to get over the usual how are you, why you here. It just opens up a really good avenue for having a really good conversation because I have heard some great answers to this question and it can quickly take you to a more deeper and personal level of connection with someone instead of the superficial one. So, icebreaker question, let me break the ice by asking you this question. What's a fact not on your LinkedIn? The second icebreaker that I recently learned is called high, low, buffalo. What it means. So imagine you are meeting me for the first time. This is how would I explain it. Mate, look, I would love to kick off a conversation with you by asking an icebreaker question. And I'd learned this recently called high, low, buffalo, where we share something good, a high of a life that happened to us recently, a low, which was a challenge, which was a struggle, and then a buffalo. A buffalo is a fact, a fun fact, a weird fact about you. So I'll share mine. My high for 2024 was that I started my speaking and coaching business. A low for me was at times it became really overwhelming finding clients, managing full-time job, managing the business. So a steep learning curve there. And a buffalo would be I have 20 titanium screws in my body. How about yourself? And then let the other person share their high, low, and buffalo. What it does is it'll give you something very good happen in their life, something that they were struggling with, and a fun fact. So there are so many communication threads that you have opened up and you can ask follow-up questions to any of them and it helps you connect with them personally. So use icebreakers to talk about the elephant in the room, take the awkwardness out. All right, so now let's move into some frameworks, some strategies you could use after you have started the conversation to keep the conversation going. The number one, the most basic one that I learned while doing door-to-door sales is called Triple A framework. A. It stands for acknowledge, add, ask. What it means is when you're having a conversation with somebody, remember the fundamental, be interested and not interesting. So you need to acknowledge the other person. When they're speaking, be an active listener. You can acknowledge non-verbally, like shaking of your head, your facial gestures, making the sounds like, oh, okay, interesting. You can verbally and non-verbally acknowledge what the other person is saying. After they have said something, now you want to add. Let's say I met somebody and they shared they have been to Melbourne for a road trip. So they said that, and I'll be like, acknowledging, oh, Melbourne sounds great. Then I will add something to it. I was in Melbourne actually last year and it was one of my favorite times. I added to something they have said. Now ask is the last step. Put the ball back in their court. Tennis, remember? Yeah, Melbourne sounds great, man. I was actually there last year as well. My favorite time would be eating all the delicious food. What was your favorite experience in Melbourne? See what I did? I acknowledged it. I added something of my own into that. And then I asked a question to put it back on them. This is how the conversation can keep going. They will say something about, oh, in Melbourne, actually, I watched penguins and watching penguins was amazing. That's what they said. Now let me share how I would include acknowledge, add, and ask to when they said watching penguins was their favorite experience. Oh, penguins are so cute, man. I have actually never watched them. When do you think is the best time to watch? Acknowledge, added, and ask the question back. You don't have to think of it too seriously either. Whatever the natural flow in the conversation is, it's very fluid. But having some sort of knowledge of this framework can help you keep the conversation going. So again, let's summarize. Acknowledge what they have said, add something to what they have said, and ask a follow-up question using the WH family or the TED framework, which was tell, explain, describe. All right, the next framework is called the Ford method. FORD. This stands for family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. When you meet new people, if you want to keep the conversation going, keep the conversation in these four sectors, because this is what people are usually comfortable talking about the family, about what they do as an occupation, about their recreation, what they love as a passion, as a hobby, or their dreams, their aspirations, what are their goals. So you can move the conversation into any of these four buckets, and then using the AAA method, using WH family, using TED, you can keep that conversation going. Now look, at the end of the day, conversation is as much as an art as it is science. It's not just formulas, methods, frameworks. It is about that genuine connection you feel with another human, which sometimes is hard to do. That's when you want to use these frameworks. That's when you want to have some sort of mental model of having conversation with people, until you get to a point where you can do it without thinking about it and connecting with somebody on a genuine and a more deeper level. Before I close off, I want to say there are high stakes situations, there are low stakes situations. And I would encourage you for the next 1 month, 1 week, whatever that is, use these methods in low stakes situations. Something like talking to your barista, to the waiter, someone who is sitting next to you in the public transport, someone you met in the elevator, someone who is waiting in the queue to the movie theater. These are all low stakes situations where you can say hello, have a conversation. Even if you have an awkward conversation, chances are you would not see that person again. So it's fine. It's a very low stakes situation as compared to something like a high stakes situation, which is you going to a networking event where you know there are people who could be your future clients. Or if you go to a career fair, if you're a student. These are high stakes situations. If you practice what you have learned in this video in the high stakes situations, the stakes are high. So use these frameworks in low stakes situations, get better there. Every day talk to one person, say hello to someone new, build up confidence in the low stake situations, all the way leading to the high stake situations. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you watched it till the end, massive thank you. If you have any questions, put them down in the comment section or reach out to me on LinkedIn or Instagram. My username is Speak with Shiv. Until I see you next time, speak with confidence.